I feel for Haliburton. I feel for that fan base because to come so close, to have such a storybook run, and for it to sort of fizzle out the way it did because of an injury, that's just, basketball's got to figure that out. I don't know. There's nothing you could do about the injuries, but these Achilles things, like doctors got to figure it out. Team trainers got to figure it out. I don't know how freak it is. I don't know.
I think it's the other way around. I actually think coaches need to figure it out. I think there needs to be actual training on how to avoid these injuries.
Right. And I don't think these guys should ever play on hurt calves. I said it during Russo and Rizzo a couple hours ago. Treat it like concussions.
I heard you say that. I actually think last night had nothing to do with the calf.
I think it did. I don't know.
Absolutely nothing.
Because the same thing happened to Durant. Durant had the calf strain coming into the game, and he played the first quarter, and he tore his Achilles.
True that. But I'm going to show you guys a graphic real quick. If you go onto our YouTube stream, you can see our lovely faces. But also, I'm going to show a picture real quick. What you're seeing are 3 side-by-side comparisons of Haliburton's Achilles injury, Damian Lillard Achilles injury, and Jayson Tatum's Achilles injuries. They all look super similar. One leg is completely stretched back. The whole rest of their body is leaned forward because they're trying to make an immediate break either with or without the ball. There has to be a way to coach this step out of players.
That's your solution? These guys can't burst?
They can burst. You just can't burst like this. You can't put your entire body weight on one heel of your leg. You literally, track and field athletes train for shorter steps. Football players train for shorter juke steps. In fact, basketball is one of the sports where you're supposed to get wide because that's what shifts the defender's hips more and more. Almost every other sport is short. It's concise. Base pass when you're playing baseball, when you're attacking the runner. Every other sport, you're kind of seeing this short, concise footage. I would like to see that in basketball because I think that is honestly a faster way on avoiding these type of injuries rather than just, your medical staff has to figure out how to heal these better. How about just do the footwork better that'll protect yourself? In football right now, there are guys who are physically training on how to get tackled. Quarterbacks in the pocket, how to fall.
Yeah, football has the same problem, too. It's not like football's figured it out.
No, but
there are a lot of big injuries have torn Achilles for them as well.
But I'm not seeing trainers have to get better. I'm seeing players having to work around their problem. I think these players need to work around whatever this problem is right here.
Like, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physical therapist. I don't know exactly what the answer is. But I do think there's a reason that this has happened a couple times now with guys who have calf injuries coming back on weak calves, and all of a sudden the Achilles just has a lot more stress on it, however you want to put it. I know it's the strongest tendon in the body, but these are freak injuries. I don't think it's a coincidence that he had a hurt calf, came back earlier than he should, and got hurt because of it. I think that would be the step one takeaways. I think that injury is going to be viewed as a little more serious. Maybe you're right. Maybe these guys need to perform a little less risk or movements that lend itself to this type of injury. But similar to how we started to figure out how to combat ACL tears, they still happen. It's still topical. But I don't think it's as frequent as it maybe was 5-10 years ago or as bad as it once was. I think the medical staff, in terms of doing surgeries, recovery, it's gotten a lot quicker. It used to be a 12-month injury. It's probably around an 8-month injury these days. I think that's another big step that medical practices, sports training is going to have to take with with the Achilles injury, because that's a year injury right now. I think lessening that to 8, if possible, would be really beneficial. But you're right. It's that injury has hijacked a lot of the Eastern Conference for next year.
Eastern Conference specifically, it sure has.
And it doesn't happen all that often. Like it hasn't.
No, it's fluke non-contact. That's the key. ACLs, like you just mentioned, majority of the time they're happening on hits. They're happening on twisted bodies in a pile. I mean, I'm a Houston Texans fan. It's literally how we lost Tank Dell last year when he got hit in the end zone. These are ridiculously weird non-contact injuries that I think they're all looking very similar, but because it's complete stress on the body, you're having to let the body be the thing that heals itself, and that's why they're taking so long.
There's got to be some sort of strength thing that they might not neglecting, isn't as built up as it could have, that allows you to not deal with this, whether it's a better distribution of weight, like you said, or if it's just something.
Flexibility. This is what the tendon is. It's stretching itself out to where it's it can't go anymore.
Right.
So whether it's strength or just sheer flexibility,
I
I
have a hard
understand.
time believing NBA stars not being flexible. I don't. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe these guys are stiff, but they got world-class trainers, millions and millions of dollars of sport performance going in. What, these comparatively to the average person? Maybe they just have so much force and weight and strength that it just takes a lot more. But it's a shame because now it's hijacked 3 teams. The Bucks have a grim outlook because of that. The Celtics don't have a grim outlook, but that they don't have a championship outlook at the moment because Tatum went down.
No, they looked lost against the Knicks without him too.
You're saying the same thing about the Pacers. You're saying the same thing about the Pacers. Is that, yes, this team's probably a playoff team still. They played well enough in the game against the Thunder without Haliburton. I actually give them credit for how they played throughout the first half. They were leading going in. But it's one of those things where, all right, well, their outlook, their expectation just takes a major hit. I can't believe this turned into arguing about the fixing of an Achilles tear, but it's something the NBA's got to monitor for sure. You got to monitor how to keep these guys protected. That is too...
Protected on non-contact injuries?
I don't know. It's too impactful of an injury. It's hijacking too many big-time players for them not to notice. Something has to... I'm not saying something has to change, but in terms of how it's viewed amongst athletes, how it's protected against, proactively trained against, that something needs to change.
Now, to be fair, I did see a statistic before we came on air. Between 1999 and this year, there have been, I think, 44 Achilles injuries. The number is 1.36 Achilles tears in the NBA per year. So
that's the average between 99 and today?
Yes.
There's been 3 this postseason.
That's what I'm saying. We're having an extraordinary amount in a short amount of time.
Right, it's an influx.
But like you said, this is such a fluke injury that is just one postseason of bad Achilles tears going to force the NBA to do something?
Right, and I don't do something is the wrong word. Be cognizant of what's causing these. Figure that out.
I think the players need to be more so than the league itself.
Totally. League, players, teams. I'm thinking broad scope.
Okay.
But I understand what you're saying. You're right. But, I mean, that is it. What teams are not going to pay attention to that? They should. And I think it starts with the calf. I mean, it happened to Durant in this exact same scenario. It's literally him all over again. He came back probably too early from the calf. People were questioning whether he should come back, but I believe it was when they were down 3-1 to the Raptors because Clay got hurt the same game, or 3-2 might have been. And the first quarter, tears his Achilles. He's done. He's out. And that's where you think, should he have played? Should Haliburton have played? You can't tell a guy he can't play in the NBA Finals, but now all of a sudden we're not going to see you next year. That's where it gets hurt. And more importantly, this all circles back to the main point that I think we got teased yesterday with what could have been in that game because it was a pretty anticlimactic Game 7. That's the bottom line.
It also would have been completely different if Haliburton hadn't been fire from beyond the arc to start the game. If the Thunder immediately blitzed out to a 10-point lead and then Tyrese goes down, you're like,
this game had the shapings up to be a classic.
Oh, it was going to be incredible.
It was shaping up to be a classic, which is why you feel disappointed about it. You got to be disappointed. And that's why this storyline is a lot of it is the Pacers there and not necessarily the Thunder. The Thunder had a 68-win regular season. They have the MVP. They have the scoring champion, who is also the finals MVP. They're deep. They got 100 draft picks. They're young. The youngest team since 1977 to win a title. And they're not the main focal point in my eyes. And I think it's just because they haven't lent themselves to be the big-time story coming out of it. But I think the Pacers were just so exciting and people were just chomping at the bit for that type of run. You almost feel disappointed as a sports fan to see it end the way it did. If they lost fair and square, fine. But I'm not going to say it was not fair and square, but unfortunate circumstances completely derailed the game.
The two teams weren't playing at their greatest capacity.
And injuries are part of sports, and there's nothing you could do. That's the bottom line. But you got to think about what if. You got to think about it.